This video is going to cover the second page of the Chapter 3 test, but version 2. So make sure that your version starts with this question, where we're told that the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180. Now the instructions in this exercise was to determine which lines, if any, must be parallel given the information in each item. So let's look at 2, 3, and 4. Okay, 2 and 3 are adjacent to one another. 4 is off by itself. So 2, here we go, is 4, mark 4, and then 2, 3 is some other measurement. And together the two of them add up to 180 degrees. Okay. Now the first question that I would ask myself here is, what line do they share? What line are they both touching? And it looks like line F is what they are both touching. So that could be my transversal. And then the next thing that I want to do is figure out what two lines the transversal is cutting through. So I'll label that in green. That blue line, turquoise line, is cutting through line A and line B. So it seems like maybe A and B could be parallel. But first we have to figure out if the angle relationship is right. So 2, 3, and 4 are both inside the green line, so that would be interior. And then they are on the same side of F, so the same side interior angles. What do we know about same side interior angles? We knew that if lines were parallel and cut by a transversal, that same side interior angles were supplementary. We figured out that the converse of that was true, so that we can say the following now, that A is parallel to B because same side interior angles being supplements means that lines are parallel. Okay, let's erase all these markings so we can start fresh on the next question. And we've got 12 equaling 5 plus 4. The measure of angle 12 being the same as the measure of 5 plus 4. Okay. So, again, question is, what is touching both of these? What line is touching both of those angles? And that would be line D. Okay. That's going to be our transversal. Now, what lines is D crossing? Well, E and F. Okay. Take a look at the angles now. 12 and then the 5, 4 combo are inside the purple lines, so interior, but the angles are on opposite sides of line D, so alternate interior. Do we know that alternate interior angles are congruent is a reason to prove that lines are parallel? Yes, that should be on your list. So we get to write the following. E is parallel to F because alternate interior angles being congruent makes lines parallel. Alright, next up we've got 11 being congruent to 10. Okay, so we can get into the idea that I've been suggesting in the other problems, that they share line C. Sure. However, even though C crosses two lines, you could say that E and F are crossed by C. Does F have anything to do with angle 10 or 11? No. And in fact, if you take a closer look, 10 and 11 are congruent because of vertical angles. Vertical angles being congruent has nothing to do with lines being parallel. So we actually can't prove anything based on this statement, so I'm just going to write none. Alright, finally we've got 1 being congruent to 8. So let's mark that up. Here's 1. Here is 8. Okay, what line do they share? Well, that would be line E. So that's our transversal there. Okay, and then what two lines does the turquoise line touch that form 1 and 8? Because this turquoise line cuts through several lines. But what forms 1 and 8 with the turquoise? We'll mark that in green. So let's see. 1 is here and 8 is here. So it looks like A and B could be our parallel lines. But let's figure out whether 1 and 8 have the right relationship. Okay, 1 is in the bottom right as the transversal cuts through, and 8 is in the bottom right as the transversal cuts through the parallel line. So they are corresponding. They're in the same position relative to where the transversal hits. So are corresponding angles being congruent one of our reasons that we can say lines are parallel? Yes, they are. So I can say that A is parallel to B because corresponding angles being congruent proves that lines are parallel. All right, we can move on to number 5 here. In a certain decagon, which is a 10-sided polygon, one angle measures 140, another angle measures 120, and the remaining 8 angles are all congruent to one another. What is the measurement of one of these remaining angles? Okay, to get started on this problem, you needed to know how to find out how many degrees in total are in a decagon. So hopefully somewhere in your notes or committed to memory, you knew this, that the sum of angles, interior angles in a polygon is equal to n minus 2 times 180. Okay. Now what's n going to be? N is the number of sides, or the number of angles, which in a decagon is 10. So I've got 10 minus 2 times 180. Okay. Now, got to get the unknown information into this. So I need to add up all the angles. Okay. How many angles do I need to add up in a decagon? Well, 10. One of them is 140. And another one of them is 120. The other 8 I don't know, but I do know that they're all the same. If they're all the same, I can call them all x. So I can get the rest of the adding done simply by saying 8x. Okay, so 10 minus 2 times 180 ends up giving me 1440. And that gives me 260, 140 plus 120 on the right side, plus 8x. We'll subtract 260 from both sides, which gives me 180 equals 8x, or excuse me, 1180. And, sorry about that, divide by 8, and we get 147.5 degrees for those 8 missing angles. And that concludes this video.